All right, guys, it is day one of week one, and I'm going to be sharing with you more about your labs today. Hopefully, you've been able to work on some of your scorecards and at least plan on when you're doing them if you have not already finished them and sent them back into us. So I'm sharing with you about your labs now just so that as they start to arrive at your home, you have an idea of what's about to happen and just have some familiarity with the lab tests before you get started. So that is what today's video is all about. As a reminder, we are currently on step one of the train of self-healing, which is getting better information. So you are doing the work. This truly is the work of gathering this information and figuring out these boxes that are going to be coming to your house and following the instructions to take the samples and all that jazz. You are being a scientist and you're being proactive in your health just to validate what's going on. And as a reminder, this is all about inertia. So we want these labs to be able to come in, you to get them done as fast as possible, send them back in, and that helps that train continue moving forward. So as step one, better information, just have an official slide. I also love to think of this slide or this step as being Sherlock Holmes and diving deep into your health and following the clues. Who did it? Who didn't do it? Even if it looks like so-and-so did it, what if someone else, what if, the garbage man did it? Things like that. We're not just assuming who or what the culprit is and why you're having your symptoms, but rather we're saying they haven't resolved yet. The methods you've tried, the doctors you've been to, the diet changes you've done, etc., haven't worked. And so it's just a question of who did it. And you are now officially Sherlock. I think that makes me his sidekick. So in this training, you will learn about the labs you are running, their purpose, kind of why you're running them, how to plan for them, and taking action. So, an introduction to your labs. And the first lab that I want to talk about is called your Dutch Complete. The Dutch Complete is a dried urine sample test. It actually comes and it looks like this because you're not sending in any liquids per se, but you have these little tabs here of where you're actually going to have the dried urine on. So it's very, small mailing package in some ways. And it comes with a book, which explains to you how to take the lab test. So every lab that comes to you has instructions, and so does the Dutch test. That's why we don't give you specific instructions here. But we do, if you check back the email that this came in, there will be links if you want to download instructions in advance to read how to do your Dutch test or how to do the GI map test. Whatever lab you're having, you can always go back to this email and download a PDF. We've grabbed instructions from variety of sources and collected them just for you. And in this test, we are sampling your hormones, which includes your sex hormones like estrogen, progesterone, testosterone, other parts, something called metabolites, which doctors never check for, and they can be incredibly insightful into things like your liver function and how well you're detoxing estrogen, and if you're holding on to extra weight because of estrogen. All those things are connected. So it's a much deeper dive and a really fantabulous test. We also look at the adrenal gland hormones such as cortisol, cortisone, and we look at melatonin, which is a hormone that's majority of it's made in the gut. And so it's really great that it puts it on there because it's not a lot of times we can have low melatonin levels from having gut dysfunction. So if you're having bloating, constipation, diarrhea, discomfort, acid reflux, there's a higher likelihood that your melatonin also is being impacted, which impacts your sleep and impacts your alertness during the day, all of your circadian rhythms, and just in general, your feeling of restfulness and having energy for the day. So really great information to have. And this test provides a window into the health of, already mentioned some of these, the gut specifically because of that melatonin, liver detoxification, especially because of looking at estrogen, inflammation because again of estrogen, and then also progesterone. Just so you know in advance, low progesterone can be a result of inflammation. So if we find low progesterone as an example, we are not going to recommend supplementing with bioidentical estrogen or progesterone. We almost never recommend that, but rather we say, why is there inflammation? And we go and we look and we find it. And that's actually why we do the GI map or the food sensitivities test or any other test that we've chosen to do with you, because we are looking for that inflammation so that we can find the root cause and not just put a band-aid and slap a supplement over it or a prescription. And so lastly, we get a window into your health of your hormone conversion, because hormones don't just appear out of thin air. They actually oftentimes get converted from other hormones. And so if you have low amounts of testosterone, maybe you have low amounts of DHEAS. And if you have low amounts of DHEAS, maybe there's something else that's low or high. And so all our hormones get like a waterfall. They just change over time in our bodies. We're big of chemical plants. That's kind of freaky. Chemistry experiment walking around. That's your body. And sometimes those chemistry things don't work the way we want them to, and we figure out why. The next test you do is the GI map by Diagnostic Solutions. It comes in a box like this, and it is a stool sample test. So you're going to be collecting stool. You're looking at pathogens in the gut, such as parasites, bacteria, and yeast. And we also get some markers into how well you're digesting or how much inflammation there is. And do you have some toxin markers, something called beta glucuronidase? You never heard of it before, potentially, probably, but it's a really helpful marker, and it can cause someone to hold on to estrogen, gain weight, their period to be out of whack, have worse acne, all those sorts of things because of bacterial overgrowth. So it is a window into the health of your gut, your immune system, your digestion, and your inflammation. I forgot to mention, it also does look into your immune system, how much secretory IgA is coming out of your gut. And there's also a marker on there looking at, is there a wheat sensitivity potential? It's not a diagnosis, but it will assess a certain marker that looks at a wheat sensitivity. So super important. This is something you will collect once in one day. And so really simple test. The next one is the mediator release test, or we also call it the MRT by Oxford Biomedical Technologies. And it is your food sensitivity test. If you got this, it is made up of a blood sample. And so you'll go to another location, which we have provided a link where in the email that we sent you of clicking on that link and then finding the closest partner with the MRT that will draw your blood. To get your blood drawn, you can either go to a location or have someone come to you. They're called mobile phlebotomists. That's really great. And there's an extra fee for them to come to you, but you'll pay a fee either way to get your blood drawn. And then you'll send that blood in cold packaging overnight. It's already prepackaged. Everything comes prepackaged. So everything's paid for already for the labs. You don't have to worry about paying or knowing what address to send it to. It's all done for you. This test is 170 foods. It checks out grains, meats, dairy, vegetables, fruits, spices, chemicals, things you would think of, things you wouldn't think of. Really just a great list, and has been so helpful to so many of our clients to know, I shouldn't be eating spinach or I shouldn't be eating soy, and we just know it and we don't have to guess anymore. It gives us a window into the health of your systemic or whole body inflammation, your intestinal lining, and causes of inflammation. Because remember, food is not the food is not the enemy here, but it can end up being just one more aspect of causing inflammation. So we want to reduce inflammation in your body as quick as possible. And that's part of how we get our results and get your body into a healing state. So those are our base labs. The foundational labs are the Dutch, the GI map, and the MRT, but we do have some extra labs, and depending on what we decided on your 30-minute complimentary call, you might be adding these into your foundational labs. You might be doing them instead of your foundational labs. And the other thing is that when we get to the 3-month reevaluation points, or point, depending on how long you're working with us, this will be when we decide if we want to do a new test like this one or retest some of the other ones. So I'm just going to tell you about them because depending on who you are, this may or may not be relevant or important for you. The first thing is that the organic acid test is another urine sample test. And it tests for a lot of markers. Like I wrote a bunch down, and you can even see some of the markers that this is only one page of, I think, 9 pages of things it tests for. Just a phenomenal test. And so it tests for yeast and fungus presence, bacteria, and something called Clostridia, oxalates mitochondrial energy production, which mitochondria are in your cells and they create energy, the Krebs cycle, fatty acid energy, neurotransmitter balance, your nutritional markers such as vitamins, detoxification quality, amino acid balance. It is a great test. And it gives you a window into the health of things like, do you have invisible pain, fibromyalgia, or just achiness? Sometimes there are certain markers on here that are connected with invisible pain syndromes. We also have fatigue, foggy headedness, mood instability. All these things play into what's going on, as well as just pathogens, clearly, because of the yeast and the fungus, the bacteria and the Clostridia that it can find. The next lab test is something called a hair tissue and mineral analysis that we do. Again, we have a sample of the results on the right side. And this is a hair test and really simple again, test for heavy metals. And it also tests for healthy minerals. So what you see here are all the healthy minerals that we want to have: calcium, magnesium, sodium, potassium, iron, copper, and just getting an idea of what the balance is. Do you have too much? Do you have too little? And this is a phenomenal test to get and can really tell us if you are having a mineral imbalance or a mineral depletion problem, which may be affecting everything from the regularity of your cycle to your energy to your mood. It can be a window into the health of your stress response, such as cortisol. Are you in a chronically depleted HPA axis exhaustive phase? Things like that. If you don't know what they are, that's okay. You will begin to learn as we're working together. It also is a window into chronic depletion and heavy metal toxicity. The last test that we might add on, or that you might be doing right now, is called a Zoomer test from Vibrant Wellness. These are blood sample tests that do really in-depth food sensitivity testing. And so most of their tests aren't more than 10 foods. Most of them are just one food. And as an example, you can deep dive into foods such as wheat, corn, grains, dairy, lectins, peanuts, eggs. And then you can do like a neural health lab, which is phenomenal. We've really been able to find for some of our clients just signs that they have antibodies in their body that's pointing them towards demyelination diseases or degenerative diseases of the brain. And so we're able to catch those and make sure that we're making really intentional steps, that those don't come into fruition, that we can cut them off. And we just know that it's going on. These tests can be a window into the health of your immune system, you know, how hard your immune system is having to fight against certain foods, your nervous system, your brain, as we already talked about, and potential development of autoimmune disorders. The Zoomer test is in Better Belly Therapies. It is our gold standard for wheat and gluten sensitivity testing. Again, we don't diagnose here at Better Belly Therapies, but it is gold standard to know point blank if wheat is a problem or how deep it is. So if you are hesitant, you're worried, you're concerned, you're interested, all those things, this is a test we can easily run for you. And we can even get a bundle going, which saves a ton of money, and you get more lab tests going. So planning your labs. Now you know what your labs are. You maybe know if are you getting urine? Are you getting stool? Are you getting blood? What's going on? And what are they testing for? Why are we doing them? You have a little bit of an idea on that. So now is the practical point of planning. What day are you going to do? And so if you know in advance, you know, I'm going to plan to do this day, it makes it that much easier for you to get them done. And so I'm going to give you some recommendations on how to choose which one to do first, or all those kind of nitty-gritty things that can be overwhelming once your labs arrive. If you just know what you're going to do first, it's so helpful. So there are 3 factors in planning your labs. One is your menstrual cycle, if you are a menstruating female. The factor 2 is your availability. What's your schedule like? Are you available to collect urine or blood or stool? And factor 3 is just the nitty-gritty details in sample collection. For example, the organic acid test or the Dutch test ask you to not eat certain foods or drink more than a certain amount of water. And so we want to make sure that just you're able to accomplish those details with anything else going on in your day. So number one is your menstrual cycle. So if you are postmenopausal, this is not relevant for you. You can do your Dutch test any day of the month if you are male. You can do this any day of the month, but your menstrual cycle is if you are menstruating, even if it's irregular, even if you're perimenopausal, this matters because we're trying to catch your hormones at a specific time of the month, which is called your luteal phase. And so the Dutch Complete, we are trying to catch you in a day 19 through 22 of your menstrual cycle. And the big question is, if your menstrual cycle will impact your Dutch test, you want to know, do you have a regular period? What part of your cycle are you on? And when is the next possible day you could collect a sample? And because this can be more detailed, we have another video. So please finish watching this video and then jump to our next one. Even if you have a regular cycle, because we do get into a little bit of what's day one of your cycle, what's day 19 through 22, how do you pick it, things like that. So please, if you are still cycling, watch our next video. The number two, the thing that will affect when you're doing these lab tests is your availability. So please consider, does it matter? Does your lab test care what time of day you collect your sample? For example, the Dutch test does. We collect a sample in the evening, we collect a sample in the morning, in the after, or like when you wake up in the morning and then in the afternoon. Are you collecting multiple samples in one day? That is the case with the Dutch test, but with this GI map test, which is stool, you just grab one sample and you're done. So just know how many points how many points in one day or 2 days will this test want something from me? What does your day look like? Are you working? Is there something unique going on? Just picking a day. A lot of people try to pick maybe a weekend day or a day where they have a day off or a slow morning so that, they are able to grab whatever sample they need to. And then do you want to do this test on an off day from work or day off, which is what I just mentioned. And the last thing is the details of the lab will impact when you do it. I already mentioned the Dutch Complete does ask you for day 19 through 22 of your menstrual cycle for a menstruating female. And we're going to get into that lab next. The GI map is, when do you poop? Do you poop once every other day? Do you poop always in the morning? Do you poop in the evening? Do you poop super randomly? Do you not poop very much at all? If you don't poop very much at all, we've probably talked about it, as in you're going to want to take some magnesium citrate supplements and just make sure that you're encouraging your body to have a regular bowel movement. And then lastly, with the MRT, you're going to find a local lab and to draw blood, or find a mobile phlebotomist and sync up with their schedule. Now, we do provide a link. Please go back to the email where it'll say, schedule or find a local provider that will partner with the MRT and do that blood draw for you. The next thing is, if you are doing one of these other tests, want to give you a quick briefing. We didn't change it, but the organic acid test, this has nothing to do with your cycle. But the organic acid test, you just have to read the instructions. I'm so sorry for this. You have to read the instructions. Then the hair test, hair tissue mineral analysis, you just want to make sure you haven't dyed your hair in 6 weeks, or wait 6 weeks since the last time you had a hair coloring. And then for the Zoomer bundle, you want to find a local lab to get your blood draw and sync up with their schedule, or find a mobile phlebotomist. It is a different partnership than the MRT. So you can follow the link in the email and get that there. But otherwise, you can also some of our clients will be doing finger prick tests, and you just need to find a time to do that finger prick test. So this is the recommended lab order that we have if you're doing the foundational 3 labs. One is the Dutch Complete, just because even if you don't do it before the GI map, know when you're doing it, because it's the most complicated test if you're a cycling female. And then lab number 2 is the GI map test, because it takes a longer amount of time for them to do the analysis. And lab number 3 is the MRT, because you get the results. Usually we get the results in 24 to 48 hours. So it could be the last test you do and you're done, and we do get the results rather fast. Now it's time to activate. I want you to pull out your calendar, think about what I just shared. What tests are you doing? Maybe write them down. I love using sticky notes to think. You can write down, what are the 3 or 2 or 1 or 5, however many tests you're doing. What are the tests? What do you need to do? And if you are a cycling female, your homework really is to watch the next video. I'll see you on the other side.